Hi, everybody. Arjun Aurora, CEO and founder of Retargeter. We're a targeted online advertising company based out of San Francisco. We started about 4 years ago. So today I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. So one, definitely excited to chat about the values piece, and also want to talk a little bit about community, relationships, and this idea of called transactional fatigue. So I'll actually start with the values piece. And this is something that I learned, kind of a very hard lesson, but a very important lesson as I started the company. So towards the end of 2009, I started in April of 2009, it was just myself, and then started to bring on the first couple of folks as we just started to get the organization going. So we had people in the marketing division and product and engineering, and by people I mean one person in each of those. And then we had our early sales team as well. And so as we started, things were going great. We got some early traction. People were really enjoying the technology, and it was working really well for our clients. And it was an exciting time. We were growing quickly, so we were having a lot of fun. And it's always fun when you're growing quickly. One thing that started to happen over time was that we had one salesperson in particular who was just, for whatever reason, not aligned with our organization. Was kind of getting in a little bit of conflicts. There was kind of stuff going on. Was fighting with other employees. It just didn't feel right. And the biggest challenge there was that he also happened to be our number one sales guy. And not only was our number one sales guy, but if he was doing, and I'm making up numbers here, 100, the sales guy below him was doing 30 in a month. So really, really strong in that capacity. And eventually it started to get, I guess you could say worse. And we started to think about this more and more. And by we, I mean me. Since I didn't have another co-founder in that case. So I'm sitting there thinking about this. It's becoming challenging. I'm having to deal with him in a challenging way. But at the same time, he's helping us drive our business forward. So eventually I had to make the really tough decision to let him go. And it was a hard decision, but one that needed to be made. And after that happened, we realized that the culture improved, people were happier. Those folks who were doing 30 all of a sudden popped up and started, within the next month, we're doing 60 and 70 now. And then over time, we're able to surpass it. So I had to spend a lot of time there thinking about, well, what just happened? Why did this occur? What was the case? This person was clearly performing, but this didn't work out in that way. And spent a lot of time with a phenomenal executive coach that I had at the time, Dave Cashin, started talking a lot about values, and really using this as an impetus to define what our values are. And once we went through that exercise, we realized that actually he was misaligned on a few of the key things that were really important to us. Respect, humility, intelligence, and building long-term relationships were all things that were really important to us, and he was misaligned. Now, he's a great guy. It just wasn't the right person for our organization at that time. And that was a big, important lesson for us, is through that experience, we were able to then codify our values and really get clear about what they mean. And as we moved into our next office, we literally embossed them on our wall because they were that important, and put them where you walk in and you see them as kind of the first thing. And they're huge. They're across the entire side of a wall. And that experience, and I'm so thankful for that experience, because it allowed us to see, what do we actually value, be clear about it, what does it mean, what does it not mean. And every new employee that we have, we just onboarded 2 folks this week before I came here. I sit with those folks and we go through that deck personally. And we're just 40 folks right now, so I can still do that, and I hope to be able to do that for a long, long time, because I think it's that important. So that's a quick, kind of story on the importance of values, how we came to kind of find those values, and we hire and fire by those values, we promote by those values, we compensate based on those values, and we really try and live and breathe that every day. So that, I would say, is part one. Now I'll talk a little bit about community and the importance of building relationships and what I call transactional fatigue. So we are a very relationship-heavy culture. We take a lot of time and care into building long-term relationships. It is one of our values. It's something that we really pride with employees, with vendors, with clients, with anybody in our ecosystem. It's something that we're really passionate about. And as I started to think about that, it was, well, this is part of a larger trend as well, in the concept that we're now dealing with this idea of transactional fatigue. Back in the old day, people used to do business where hey, I'm just going to sell you this thing and we're going to do this transaction and then I'm done and I'm never going to see you again and we're kind of through. But with the rise of transparency on the internet, with the rise of being able to connect with folks very quickly, community and relationships and doing business with people who are your friends and who are part of your various communities has become so much more important. And I see that happening over time. Back in the past, if you screwed someone over, you could kind of disappear into the ether and no one would ever know. But now, with tools like the Funded for fundraising, or with Quora or Twitter or whatever, these things are now becoming possible. So you can kind of maintain this information, LinkedIn even. So with that in mind, building community and building relationships becomes even more important. And so from the perspective of a startup and from our own perspective, I see three main communities that any startup founder should build and have their senior team build and their entire team build is really important. So these three communities are your regional community, your community for your specific role, and then also the community for your industry. So for us, we're in the ad tech space, so we spend a lot of time at the ad tech conference, at online marketing conferences, at SMB marketing conferences, and we build community through there. We throw parties around those events, and we really get to know who are the influencers and who are the important folks in kind of our industry community. And then for the role specifically, was mentioned quickly before, was the YEC, so the Young Entrepreneur Council, there's Entrepreneurs Organization, there's Summit Series, there's Renaissance Weekend. There's so many of these different communities that one as an entrepreneur can be a part of. Or if you're a CMO or if you're a head of engineering, there's all these great communities that you can become a part of and add value to over time, which is so important. So I think that's another important community as a entrepreneur or CEO that you should get yourself and your community involved with. And then lastly is the regional community. I think this has been so impressive, and I've been so inspired and excited by what Las Vegas is doing to build that regional community, and had the opportunity to meet with a few folks from the community in the short while that I've been here. Talked to Jody Sherman, the CEO of EcoMom, yesterday, and he told me a great story. He said, the community is so helpful that I literally went out on a car ride the other day. We jumped in the car, and me and somebody that needs some advice drove out into the desert for an hour and a half, and just talking about ways that they can help each other and ways that they can benefit not only each other and their own companies, but also the community as a whole. And I thought that was so powerful. Thomas Knoll, who's a great friend of mine and who's here in the audience today, embodies this, just through and through in terms of really caring about both regional and other communities. And so always been inspired by him. And of course, Tony and what he's been doing with everything here. So I think the regional community being involved in that is so important. And so as you think about those three sorts of communities, how do you actually build those communities? And so again, at the 3 points here, I like 3 points, it's helpful. Think and share, have fun, and then build relationships. So thinking and sharing, it's about contributing thought leadership, Quora, conferences, mentorship, advising. How can you get involved to really share what you know? And everyone has something incredible that they know better than anybody else. So how can you get involved to share that you bring to the table with other people, whether it's online or in events, with each of these kind of three different communities. And I think that's really important to think about. And there's so many great tools online that allow you to do that now, and really build kind of not only the brand equity for your company, but personal equity and personal brand equity for yourself. The next is relationships. So within a community, the ability to connect people. So hey, this person is looking for X, and you know somebody who does X. Let's bring them together. And this has been so important for so many great communities. Is just the folks that add the most value are the ones that are the connectors, that actually say, hey, I know an expert here and somebody who needs that expertise. Let's bridge that gap. So what can you do in your day-to-day life? I would challenge you to say, let's make one introduction a month to start with, where you can help out two folks, and then ultimately 5 introductions a day. And I try, my hardest now to try and make at least 3 to 4 introductions per day to connect various people who need help in any way that they do. So that's something that's really important to me, and I think has been helpful in us building the Retargeter story. And then bring other great folks into your community. So especially young entrepreneurs or other folks who are just getting started, connect them in, tell them to join, the Impact Organization or the YC or whatever the group is, and bring them into the fold and help them be a part of that community as well. I think that's really important. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, is have fun. So throw parties, go to parties, organize events, bring people together. We do something that we call the Retargeter Dinner Series, which is we throw basically a dinner at a nice restaurant. We rent out a private room, 20 to 25 folks. And last year was so fortunate to be in Chicago, New York, Boston, LA, and San Francisco. And we just brought together 20 people from disparate kind of industries who are CEOs, CMOs, agency folks in our space, and just had great conversation. No expectations, just connecting people in that way. And it's been incredible to see the sort of things that come out of that. And people often ask me, Arjun, you're spending a couple $1,000 on all these dinners and you're flying out there, and what's the ROI on this? And so it's interesting, we started to track that, and we've actually seen that through the conversations that we've had in those sorts of dinners, completely unstructured, with no expectation, we've driven $1 million in business into our own organization and have created and helped fund and all kinds of other stuff, at least $10 million in other business that's happened through those dinners. And that's been fascinating. It took a little while to kind of do that research, but so powerful to see how simple things like that can have such a big impact. So with that, I'll conclude, and again, so thankful to be here and have this opportunity to speak with y'all, and excited to answer any questions that you might have. So, thanks.